In the 1930s, an American sociologist named Robert Merton took Durkheim's ideas about anomie and developed a theory of crime that has come to be known as strain theory. So like Durkheim, Merton is doing macro sociology. He's looking at how social structures can influence individuals to experience strain. And by strain, he means frustration or anything that can possibly cause you to engage in deviance. Merton observes that human societies, or that American society in particular, is very good at socializing its members to want to achieve goals that are held out by society to become wealthy or famous or popular. We are good at socializing people to want these things, but not everybody has an equal access to the legitimate means of achieving these goals. And so when I find that my access to wealth is blocked because I don't have a legitimate way of achieving wealth, then I may be more likely to turn to deviance. Use deviance as a way. So this is the idea that he begins with. So he's linking an individual's experience with macro-sociological forces. Merton observes that certain segments of society, people who are poor, who are racial minorities, or somewhat similarly disadvantaged, have less access to legitimate means of achieving these shared goals, achieving wealth, fame, popularity, and so forth. So Merton is essentially saying that at the root of the American crime problem is that we place disproportionate emphasis on success goals while not providing equal access to the legitimate means of obtaining those goals, and this leads to crime. Unlike Durkheim, Merton viewed anomie as a permanent condition of society. Durkheim thought that anomie was more likely to emerge in times of crisis, post-war periods, and post-apocalyptic scenarios, and so forth. Merton says, no, anomie always exists. There are always some people in society who feel detached from the norms. And these are typically the people who are in minority situations or other types of disadvantaged situations. And he's arguing that crime is a normal response to being in this disadvantaged situation, to having unequal access to legitimate means of success. So at the core of Merton's strain theory is this table. Merton liked to make conceptual tables, and this is one of them. So this is one way of setting it up. So this is the table part of it over here. Goals and means are the columns, and mode of adaptation. These are the three columns: goals, means, modes of adaptation. These are the rows, the rows. So let's look at them one by one. By goals, Merton is talking about the socially defined goals that we socialize everybody into wanting: wealth, fame, popularity, and so forth. And by means, he is talking about the legitimate means for obtaining those goals. So one of the goals is one of the goals that people are socialized into is to wanting financial success, and the legitimate means for that is to get an education, start a business, or get a high-paying job. Okay, so let's look at each of these rows. A person who accepts the goals laid out by society and who accepts the legitimacy of the means for obtaining those goals is a conformist. He's non-deviant. Some people reject the goals but accept the means. These are ritualists. So these are people who are deviant in the sense that they are not trying to succeed according to conventional standards of success. They're not necessarily turning to crime, but they're deviant in the sense that they're essentially dropping out, or they're going through the motions. Maybe they'll get a job and they'll just do the bare minimum to survive. They don't really care about getting ahead. So this is why they're ritualists. They're showing up at work, they're going through the motions, but they're not really trying to succeed. Those are real ritualists. They're non-criminal, but they're deviants in that they're not trying to succeed. They've rejected the goals. The next category is a person who rejects the goals and also rejects the legitimate means of achieving those goals. These are what Merton calls retreatists. These people are social dropouts. They might be hermits, or they might be homeless, or they might be criminal. Um, they might be drug addicts, really, or alcohol abusers. They're not trying to get ahead. And they're also rejecting legitimate means of living in society. They're not trying to work a legitimate job, or anything like that. The fourth category, people who accept the goals but reject the means. Now, this is really the most interesting one, I think. Merton calls these people innovators. So when we think of criminals, this is the group we most often think about. These are people who are engaging in crime because they want to get rich. In wanting to get rich, they're accepting the goals that society has laid out for them, but they're rejecting the legitimate ways of achieving those goals, and they're inventing a new way of achieving the goals of getting wealthy. They're turning to criminal behavior. And then the final category is a person who rejects both the goals and means, but instead of retreating into being homeless or a drug addict or something like that, these people are rebelling. So they might try to start a new social movement, or overthrow the government, or start a new religion or something like that. Okay, so I think from this lecture, from the lecture outline, and from what I've just said, you should be able to fill in these next blanks by yourself. It should be fairly obvious. Let's move now to the critiques of Merton's strain theory. The central weakness for me, the central weakness of Merton's theory is that it fails to explain crimes of the middle and upper classes, such as white-collar crime, corporate crime, and state crime. So Merton's basic argument is that people commit crime, they become innovators because they're feeling stress or frustration, they're feeling strain, they're feeling blocked in the legitimate access to success. How can that apply to somebody like Martha Stewart or to a corporate CEO? These are people who are achieving success by legitimate means. You cannot really say that Martha Stewart's access to wealth and fame was blocked in any way. She was already wealthy and famous when she committed her crimes. So Merton's theory may be relevant to explaining the crimes of the underclass, the crimes of minority groups, but it doesn't really help us understand how people who are advantaged in society commit crime. Why? What strain are they experiencing that causes them to commit crime? Merton does not really tell us. So it's a thought-provoking theory. It builds on classical sociology. It seems to have some relevance to some types of crime, but it fails when it gets to white-collar crime. And this is not to really rag on Merton too much, because many criminological theories fall down when it comes to white-collar crime, corporate crime, and state crime. Merton is just one of those.